everybody. Welcome to the County Seat. Today, I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are going to be talking today about a bill that was passed in the last session of the legislature. It is now about ready to start taking effect. It will have an impact on the off-highway vehicle community and the counties and communities that are hosts to some of the most spectacular riding in the state. We're going to start coverage of House Bill 143 by explaining exactly what it is.
If you own an OHV, it's likely you noticed a difference in how much you paid for your registration at the beginning of the year. The $18 registration fee was increased to $35 at the beginning of 2019 as part of a new law passed during the 2018 legislative session. The general consensus is that no one particularly likes to pay more, but the end result of the increase brought about by the new law is that it allows fees collected on off-highway vehicles to be used more appropriately.
So part of that, the reason why that registration fee increase is to set that aside in the restricted account in order to be utilized for a grant process we call the Fiscal Incentive Grant, or FIG. And the concept behind that is to incentivize land managing agencies, counties, municipalities, nonprofit groups to further enhance motorized off-highway vehicle opportunities across the state.
The law was prompted by a question as to where are my OHV fees and property taxes being spent? There are 202,000 registered OHVs in the state of Utah. The majority of those off-highway vehicles are registered among the 4 most populated counties along the Wasatch Front, but they are used to recreate in the other 25 counties around the state. This has created a disparity in financial resources available to maintain or enhance trails in those areas that see the most use, but don't benefit from the fees or taxes paid on the vehicles. What House Bill 143 does is it helps the users pay their fair share in the areas where they have the most impact. The Fiscal Incentive Grant, FIG, creates the ability for impacted communities to apply for matching grants to fulfill projects they might not otherwise have the resources to address.
The spirit and intent behind FIG is to make sure that we maintain and sustain the trail systems that we have across the state. So we currently have over 80,000 miles of off-highway vehicle trails. So that requires a lot of maintenance on the county side of things, a lot of maintenance on the federal land managing agencies. And so a high percentage of that money will go towards maintenance. And as most of us have ridden across the state, we do know that in some areas there has been a lack of maintenance. And so we want to make sure that we carry that spirit and that intent of performing maintenance associated with this grant process.
There are a variety of projects that can be funded by FIG as long as they contribute a direct benefit to motorized off-highway vehicles. Generally, these projects would involve construction, improvement, operation, acquisition, or maintenance of trails, facilities, and infrastructure. Projects that might also qualify for the incentive grants may include land planning and protection of access, tourism, search and rescue, and events. Grant requests of up to $12,500 will be available quarterly, but applicants must offer matching funds to be considered. While some OHV owners are seeing an increase in their ownership costs, the situation overall seems to benefit the users and the communities that see the most trail use, more than it did under the previous registration fees and property taxes on OHVs. For the County Seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Well, now you have the nuts and bolts of the conversation. When we come back, we will join our panel discussion where we'll have a perspective from the rider groups, from the state, and from the communities, or one of the communities that hosts a lot of trails. We'll be right back on the County Seat.
all local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
I promised my son that if he got straight A's, we would take a guy's trip, just the two of us. We were riding on a trail outside a place called Minersville, Utah. There was so much to explore and the trail just kept climbing higher, right to the top of a mountain called Jack's Peak. We just stood there with the whole world below us, not saying much. In fact, not a word. Later, my son turned to me and said, "I love you, Dad." Suddenly, I realized we weren't just camping, we were connecting.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today with our group of distinguished guests on the topic of off-highway vehicles and changes in the registration law. Joining us for our conversation today is Chris Haller, who is the OHV Program Coordinator for the Utah Division of Parks and Recreation. We have Brett Stewart, who's Vice President of UTV Utah, and Commissioner Darren Bushman from Piute County, the heart of the Piute ATV trail system. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chad.
It's good to have you here.
It's good to be here.
And I'm glad to hear that, Chris. Let's start this by just finding out how it all started. Where did this bill come from?
If you want me to start in here, I kind of was the one that started moving forward on it. It's been a question for a lot of folks in the OHV community for many years of where's our money going? You know, when we register our vehicles, you know, the question is, I'm from Salt Lake County, and there's 0 miles of trails in Salt Lake County, yet a majority, probably half of the 200,000 that are licensed in Utah, live in Salt Lake County. So years ago, I was looking for a small route, just to go up Butterfield Canyon, and I wasn't able to get it. So after a couple of years, you know, through the process, I was trying to figure out where's our money. So I kept asking. We even went for a grammar report for Salt Lake County, and you basically have to be a rocket scientist to read it. So anyway, through the process, they really didn't have an answer of where it's been. And like I say, if you take an average of 200,000 licensed OHVs on an average of $100 per registration, that's $20 million. And State Parks restricted fund only receives about $2 million a year for trail maintenance and so forth. So it's kind of like, where's the other 18 million? So that's been my question for many years. And I finally reached out to Representative Mike Noel, and he had the same question. And you know, along with everybody else, I mean, how many times you sit around the fire and says, where's our money go? So anyway, that's how the bill got started.
Okay, so in a question that previously, this OHV trail funds were dedicated to the county where they were registered. Is that how that worked?
Historically, because it was based upon property tax, that property tax, because off-highway vehicles are considered just like your home, your car, your truck, etc. So it's collected by your county of residency. So that goes back in, I believe, into their overall operating pot to operate the county.
But somewhere between the old way, when you just registered property tax, didn't we set up a UTV registration where a percentage of that was going to be dedicated and the counties would collect for specifically trail maintenance? Wasn't that in between, or am I mistaken on that?
I don't ever remember anything being set up along that line. However, the program, understanding that, hey, the bulk of the 202,000 registered off-highway vehicles are mainly along the Wasatch Front, and those impacts do take place in those rural communities. We've tried to be a champion and a strong supporter of those areas where the impacts take place by providing infrastructure, trail maintenance, etc.
So how did you, as a small county, look at your trail maintenance and the impacts that OHV riding had on your community in the past?
Well, for us, you take Marysville, for example, it goes from 400 people in the summer to 5,000–6,000 people. I mean, 400 people in the winter and 5,000–6,000 people in the summer. There wasn't any money for infrastructure per se. We struggled just to have search and rescue equipment. There was some money that came through the registration fees that went into the restricted fund that we could apply for. It was a small grant pool that was there. And over the years, we've worked with state parks on a few projects where we were able to get a little bit of that restricted money that was out of the fee portion of it, right? But in my county in particular, there are very few actual registered OHVs in Paiute County because most of them are registered on the Wasatch Front.
So I guess that does raise a good question. Since fees started getting collected and they were, like OHV registration fees, let's talk about that imbalance. What do you see as that imbalance? I mean, as far as the registration. When we started doing our recreation program, there were about 65,000 registered OHVs, and now it exceeds 200,000. So there has been a seismic shift in the last decade and a half of what the trails look like. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Along with, in addition to that, is how technology has changed. With the invention of the UTVs and how that has impacted trail width and trail maintenance, operation, etc. There's in addition to that, there's people that have viewed off-highway vehicles as a solitary way over the years, like you were talking about, Chad. Now we're into the social sport. You don't see a lot of people typically riding by themselves. They are more than likely riding with grandparents, grandchildren, large families, outings, etc. So it's grown into a social, recognizable form of recreation.
What kind of, go ahead.
The value, I think the other thing that's important about the shift that has occurred, not only in the number of units, but the value of the units have gone up substantially. So here we had this fixed fee, right, on one side, but then we had a big chunk of what you were paying was on the property tax side, and that was based on a valuation side of it. And the value of those machines have went up substantially. You used to could buy a Honda ATV for $3,500, and now you're talking side-by-sides that are in the $30,000 and $35,000 range, right? So it's a whole different shift of value too.
But from an end community standpoint, I think the argument ends up being what kind of impacts do the new machines have, and what kind of impacts are happening on the trail. Obviously, the impact to public land was pretty small when there were only 60,000 machines compared to being well over 3 times that amount a decade and a half later. So,
I'd like to comment on that. So when we were running House Bill 143, it wasn't just trying to find out where the money is. We want to know where it is and put it where it belongs. So, example, Salt Lake County versus all the other counties, the rural counties in the state of Utah, we're loading up on our trailers, driving out of the county because we have nothing here, and wearing their trails out where they've only got a handful of registered vehicles in their town. And it's like, we need some help for them. So now, if you're a county that wants to build a trail system, put in a facility, you can now reach into the grant system and get some money for maintenance. And so, the OHV program is probably healthier now, and money's available for all this maintenance and upgrades for the bigger machines or smaller. But the program is now very healthy and money available rather than starving.
So when your county started, Darren, the Paiute ATV trail system came in, Paiute County thought this was a godsend, because all of a sudden towns that didn't have an industry had the potential of creating an industry with this trail system, and tourism took off. Right. And so Marysville became a place to stop instead of drive through.
Sure.
But with that's come a curse of just what kind of impacts, I guess is my question, have you seen?
Well, it's become a major issue. In our county, we have, say, 150 ambulance runs a year. I would dare say 70 75% of those are related to activity associated with the trail. I'm not talking actual riding. It might be people that are staying in our communities because of the riding, but so it's a big chunk of the impact. There's also an impact to, you know, the resources and, you know, basic signage and navigation and water crossings and you name it, right? There's a bunch of stuff. And when Brett first approached me about this bill, it took me about, 30 seconds to say, yeah, I'm all behind this, because what it really, you know, when I think about a tax, first you think about, is the tax fair? And secondly, is the tax going to where the impact is? And it was very obvious. It was very obvious that the tax was not going to where the impact was. The tax was going here, the impact was here. And so it was really a no-brainer to get behind and support this, because we really need to mitigate that impact, right? And so that's essentially what Brett accomplished with this, was, you know, through enlisting Mike Noel's assistance, they've set it up now that the impacts can be mitigated with the taxes in the locations where the impact is occurring.
Great. I want to take a quick break from here. I want to pick up with your thought of we've got a grant system in place. I'd like to explore a little bit how that's going to work and who can participate in the grants from this revenue that's been put in this new big pot that we don't know exactly how much it is. We'll be right back to continue that conversation on the county seat.
Make your next adventure at Bear Lake. The Bear Lake Valley has something for everyone, all year long. Scenery, skies, water, or wildlife. You'll find what you're looking for at Bear Lake. Bear Lake, where families play year-round.
Exploring is an innate part of being human. What if there was a place on Earth that explores your sense of touch, sound, breath, sight, all year long? So take your time and make it monumental. San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country, is the place to explore your sense of adventure.
Since 1935, Utah's most entertaining rodeo has been coming to you from Nephi, Utah. And again this year, you won't be disappointed, as we'll be featuring top cowboys, cowgirls competing for the largest prize purse ever. 3 days of family fun and entertainment. The City of Fun Carnival, parades, the rodeo to feature the beauty, the grace, and the speed of Madison McDonald, magic in motion. Barrowman Matt Merritt to make you laugh. Flying U, Flying Cowboy Motorcycle Team, July the 11th, 12th, 13th, Juab County Fairgrounds, 8 p.m. nightly, the Ute Stampede.
Mountains to explore. Adventure to be had. A town to fall in love with. Yes, all that in Park City, Utah. Start your adventure at visitparkcity.com.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're having a conversation today about House Bill 143. I would like to find out how this is going to work. It's basically a large fund. It's set up as grants mostly, is it not?
Absolutely, and you know, we don't have it perfected yet, because obviously this is something new for the off-highway vehicle program and those recipients. So I might just go through a chronological order in hopes that people will be able to follow and keep it simple. So first and foremost, who can apply? Well, any county, municipality, government agency, another state agency, federal agency, and or nonprofit group, as long as they meet those requirements as established in Utah Code for a nonprofit organization. From there, we have a quarterly grant system and an annual grant system. So the quarterly grants are, the first quarterly grant is due here, July 15th. Applications are available on our website. Tried to keep those applications very simple. Roughly about 11 pages. 3 of them are instructions. I would highly encourage people to review the instructions, and a lot of check the box and things along those lines associated with information that would be derived for the council to make a recommended decision. So it is a match. The council may view up to a 50% match. Doesn't necessarily have to be a 50% match, but it would really probably go very well in the council's view of eyes for buy-in and efficiency purposes and business side of things.
And so on an annual basis, say somebody wants to build a whole new trail system and they've work a way through to plan it, design it, and blade it, then that would be an annual grant. And then if they wanted to build a kiosk or host an event, that would be a quarterly grant.
Those are great points, and I would hope that most of the counties would have identified some of those items through their county resource management plan. I do know that some counties, especially in the northeastern portion of the state, are also going through a trails master plan. And so as they work through those planning processes and they have those identified, they'll help further the cause. And part of that grant, or part of the grant system is in order to help maintain trails. In addition to that, provide infrastructure, maintenance, education, public safety, and other items associated with off-highway vehicle operation. It's only for off-highway vehicle operation.
When you were in the process of drafting this bill and you started looking at the numbers and working with the legislature, what kind of money did you think this was going to generate? Was there any estimates?
Well, we started researching, we started getting deep into it, we started finding a little bit more here and there, and by the time we were done, I know that they received, there was a fiscal note attached, so that's why it took a year for it to become, rule or law. And that's why the July 15th is actually the first quarter ever on this grant system, but it'll be quarterly from then on. But yeah, it just seemed odd that we only have 2.2 million, I believe, in the restricted fund, where we predict, we don't know, even today, we figure about 20 million they were collected. So after the fiscal note was created and we moved the bill forward, we figure it will go from about 2.2 to possibly $6 million per year available. And to go along with that, if your off-highway vehicle registration may go up just a touch, but I'll let Chris take care of that one. But on the street legal that will go along with it is it'll be reduced. It could possibly be 30 to 40%. There was a lot of things going on in the past that everybody's wondering why they pay more for their street legal UTV than they do their pickup truck. So that is a thing of the past. The highest I've heard that a registration fee was just like yesterday, and I've been watching it, monitored it, was $121 per year, and that was for a 2019 Razor. So it's gone from $200 down to maximum $121. So I figure around $120 is the very most you'll pay, where there's a lot of registered folks out there that have been paying like $200 to even $300 a year. So that's another thing that goes along with the bill that we got passed. So.
Excellent. We're going to have to take another quick break. When we come back, we will talk about where this is going to go and what kind of impacts people will see from it. We'll be right back on the County Seat.
Easy Printing was started in 1962 by my father. We've been a community printer here in Price over the last 50 years. We decided we wanted to grow our business and had to search for work outside of our area in order to grow and remain relevant. And we've been able to produce work here in Price and send it out all across the country. People are often astonished that we stay in Price, given our footprints. Our work is delivered mainly along the Wasatch Front, but Price is home. And the quality of the workforce, the quality of the people, and our commitment to the community makes us want to stay here and be part of Carbon County and be here in Price. It adds diversity, specifically in our area where we've been so coal and energy dependent. It's wonderful to have diverse industries that bring a different opportunity for people to earn a living wage and to have benefits and provide a home for their families and a future for their families. Our local economic development people got us in touch with the people in the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and it was a very clean process. The paperwork was not onerous at all, where we were able to receive funding as we were working on acquiring another truck to add to our delivery fleet so that we could expand our offering and our ability to deliver product across the state and into western Colorado. And so that was very important. It also allowed us to add some key personnel and increase our team in our warehouse and in our driving staff.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. reservation, skiing, starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Make your next adventure at Bear Lake. The Bear Lake Valley has something for everyone all year long. Scenery, skies, water, or wildlife. You'll find what you're looking for at Bear Lake. Bear Lake, where families play year-round.
Welcome back to County Seat. We're talking about House Bill 143. In our last thoughts, I'd just like to talk a little bit about fees. I noticed that the registration fee's gone from $18 to $35. It's almost doubled. Is that offset anywhere else? Does that change the formula?
Yeah, what that's done is that's changed the formula of the county assessed property value of that particular off-highway vehicle. And so in some instances, people are going to see a reduced fee, especially, or a reduced registration if their machine is newer. If they have an older machine, they're going to see anywhere from a 30 to 50% increase. That's just one of those imbalances that we can't.
So that sounds really big in percentages. Is that, how big is that in dollars? Is that from like $30 to $50? Is that $80
right around somewhere between $10 and $15 an increase annually.
Okay, so with all this revenue coming in, how do you see this helping your county? Because that was the real purpose of the bill.
Well, in our county, it's real tough for a county of 1,550 people to be able to support a trail system that gets this kind of use, right? Trailheads, restroom facilities, crossings, signage, all of those things. There's no revenue to do that with. So this realigns the revenue. I think it's going to be fantastic for rural counties where these impacts are occurring. I think it'll really do us well. My county in particular has a lot of impact because of the popularity of the Paiute Trail, and we've got a long list of stuff.
You've been waiting for an opportunity.
That's right.
Well, it will be interesting to see how this program goes, and as Utah's become the off-highway vehicle capital of at least the country, if not the world. I applaud this effort as being, very forward-thinking and a way to make this a good experience for people who live in those communities and people who play there.
I think there's something to be said for the OHV community taking the lead on this, because the OHV community took the lead on this and they did it for the betterment of the communities where they're having the impact. I think that says a lot about the OHV community, guys like Brett and Bud Brunig and whatnot. So, there's something really positive to be said about that.
Well, thank you all for your efforts. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Be involved, be like these guys were, be part of the solution, and we will see you next week on the County Seat.